Okay, good afternoon to everyone. I'm Lloyd. My complete name is Lloyd John B. Estampa. I'm an electronics engineer and I'm an instructor of University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines. I'm so happy for this invitation and I'm so happy and enthusiastic to share something to you about this thing called design thinking. So please lend me your ears for the next few minutes and maybe you will get something to make you more innovative for this challenge and for this workshop. So but of course I just would like to say congratulations in advance to the organizers for this event, spearheaded by Ivelina. So congrats for that, and kudos to everyone. So I will be discussing today all about design thinking on context focus for innovative outputs. So let's begin. So in this session, I'm going to discuss what is design thinking, how to be a design thinker, and what are the key benefits of doing design thinking. Okay, so these are just three parts of my talk. So let's begin. So let's start first with what is design thinking. So let's start with this picture. I use this picture for design thinking because I like the background, the black, because for me it symbolizes strength, but at the same time ambiguity. Because as you may heard, design thinking is very good only if you have really absorbed its concepts. But if not, if you just knew about it on a surface level, then you might find it hard to understand design thinking. But if you knew it very well, then it will be full of colors like that. Like your mind will be very colorful in doing some new stuffs and designing anything innovative. So that's design thinking. You design while you think, and you think while you design. So in this slide, these are some famous companies utilizing design thinking towards innovation. To name a few, it's IKEA, Starbucks, Apple, IBM, Nike, Procter& and Gamble, Cisco, Toyota, Airbnb, Bank of America, ESPN, IDEO, and many more companies. So it would be very nice if maybe one day you're going to apply to one of these companies, and then you will say, and they can see in your resume that you know something about design thinking, which most of them are very fond of. Maybe it will increase your chance of employability to these companies. So being innovative is really an advantage, especially today. So good luck, especially in the job hunting. Okay, so this is for this slide. As you can see, this is design thinking, the real design thinking in the industrial and professional world. Sometimes design thinking is maybe you can have this question like, what is the difference between design thinking and UX design, UX or user experience design? So technically, they are very much similar. Design thinking is just on a wider scope. But if you knew about user UX designing and even UI, the user interface designing, those are just those are kind of being encompassed. Those are like technically under design thinking, because design thinking is more on the total framework, and user experience design is like more on the solutions part. The focus there is on the solutions part. So as you can see, it's to understand, explore, and materialize. And we have these steps: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test, and implement. You can see there that these are several steps, and you can also see that there are many arrows. So expect that design thinking, just like UX designing and UI designing, is iterative. Expect that from one process, from one step, you will go again to the next step and then go back to another step. So it's an iterative process. So it's part of it's part of what is really the design thinking. It is not a one-shot deal. You have to do some steps several times. Okay. So, for simplicity, this is the design thinking in the classroom level and students' social innovation. So, there are actually four parts. First is sense and sensibility, empathy, ideation, and prototyping. Remember, sense and sensibility, empathy, ideation, and prototyping. So, for the next few slides, I'm going to discuss about these four. So, this is the framework of the design thinking. I just used the verb there, the verb of sense, the action word, sense, empathize, ideate, and prototype. So first and foremost, you sense, then you empathize with your user. After that, you define the problem, you define the needs of the user. Afterwards, you ideate for solution, you develop them into prototypes, and from prototyping, while you are prototyping, along the way, you go back to ideation. Why? What is the meaning of this arrow? It means that while you are prototyping, you might be thinking for additional solutions along the way. So that's why there's this um, arrow going back to the ideate box. And then from prototyping, after presenting it to the users, and if the users um, have some suggestions for improvement, something to work on to, you need to go back to the users. You need to empathize again to them, so to know what are really their needs. So that is the purpose of this arrow. You refine your point of view based on the feedback of the users. Because design thinking is user-based designing. It's all about the user. There's no such thing as I in design thinking. You might say that your design is good, but it's all about the user. So try to remove your bias along the way. Always think about the user, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who are going to use about your product or your solution. Okay? So let's start with the sense part. Sense. So what are you actually doing when you are doing the sense part? So when you do pre-surveying, observations, pre-assessment of target users, project awareness, and preparing the mindset, what you're doing is actually the very first step in design thinking, okay? You sense. So I just would like to highlight the last part, the preparing the mindset, because for me, this is the very most important part when you do design thinking. First is prepare the mindset. Prepare yourself first. Okay. I am an innovator. I am a student trying to do innovation for my community, for my country, or for the world. So the very first thing to do is that you prepare your mindset. Prepare your mindset in the sense like, okay, I'm going to help the world. So if you want to help the world, channel all the positivity within you. And I'm pretty sure that if you just think positive along the way, I'm pretty sure that all good things will follow. Okay. So if you have the heart to help the community, to help the world, to be innovative, try to be positive first. That whatever happens, you will remain positive in helping them in doing any process towards progress, towards innovation. Okay, so it's more, that's the very important thing. It all begins with yourself. So you cite first yourself. Okay, so also, I also capitalize all the letters in the word observation, because in the sense part, observation is the very important skill that you need to develop, because if you don't know how to observe, then you might fail along the way. So what is observation? You might use the acronym POMS. These POMS, like POEMS. P stands for people, O for objects, E environment, M messages, and S are services. So if you want to go help a community or know what are the problems of a given place, you have to observe first the people. What are the objects involved? What how do you describe the environment? The messages. What are the usual information being channeled by media, like that? And what are the services? Like do they have train services? Do they have internet services? Or do they have water services? Any services involved, so that you can package and frame the problem along the way. So that's a part of observation. You should know how to observe. For example, for example, you want to go to a dump site. Like you're going to help people living in a dump site. So you have to observe first the people. They're described as the target users or individuals involved in the activity in the project scope. Then, O, the objects. The things people or users interact with while doing the activity. E, the space, setting, or location where the activity is taking place. M, visuals, relevant news, signage, and information that is being channeled because of the activity. Last but not the least are the services. S, services by people or systems which directly or indirectly enables the activity. So it's if you just follow the POMS framework in observation, it can be a very good guide in describing and defining the problem, like describing the situation, describing your users, describing the scenario, describing the what needs to be researched, or the place you're going to help or the people you're going to help. You need first to observe them. Okay, so that's the very skill we need when you do the first step in design thinking. Learn to observe first. Okay, like this, I let my students do, I let them immerse in the community, and after interviewing several people, just random people or relevant people, they do in their pre-surveying, they write down their observations, and then they discuss with their peers, like, okay, what have you observed? Okay, can you jot down, can you discuss it to me? Because you need a team for design thinking. That's what I also like about design thinking. You cannot do design thinking if you are just one. You need at least two more persons to discuss with. So at least you can be called as a crowd or as a team. So there is sharing of ideas, sharing of what have you garnered or what have you obtained during the observation. That's the nice thing about design thinking. Okay, so sharing the teamwork part. So this is for the observations and insights. So the second part is the empathy. Empathy or the empathize is the most important part in design thinking. Okay, so it's understanding the users. So in order to understand the users, you have to interview. You have to immerse yourselves to what they are doing, and then you have to develop insights after you've interviewed them, after you have lived with them, after you have lived with them for a few days, or and after that, after interviewing several persons, you want to help. You have to create a fictional person called the persona. Okay, the persona is a fictional representation of the people you've interviewed for the problem you are trying to solve. Okay, so why persona is very important? Because if you will use real names of the people you have interviewed, like for example, you have interviewed 50 people, how are you going to represent them into just one person? So like for these 50 persons, you have interviewed 30 females and then 20 males. So what would be the gender of your persona? Okay, so what would be the name of your persona? So in order also to protect the privacy and the identity of the persons you have interviewed, you have to create a fictional representation or a character to represent them, and that is called the persona. Okay, so the persona may be a fictional character, but it represents an aggregate of user or real people that you have interviewed. Okay, and after that, after interviewing several persons, your target users, you might then extract their need statement. So what are the need of your person, of your target users? Have you really identified their needs? Okay, you have interviewed them, you have immersed with them, and then have you really captured their needs? Because remember, um, in design thinking, the users the most it's a user-based designing, so you have to understand your user. Because if you're going to design a solution for the user, but you haven't really captured the real problem, then it would be very useless. Your solution might not be that strong because it's a good solution, but you haven't captured the problem. Remember, um, if you know the problem and if you have really identified the real problem, it's already 50% of the solution. Knowing the real problem is already 50% of the solution. And at least the next 50% is totally the solution itself. Okay, so that's how important knowing the real problem is. Okay, so that's for the empathy. So because design thinking is human-centered problem solving with an emphasis on empathy, collaboration, co-creation, and stakeholder feedback to unlock creativity and innovation. The key to the process is empathizing with the user's needs to solve the problem. Okay, so again, uh, among the four parts of design thinking, this empathy or the second stage is the most time-consuming part because it's the part that needs to be deeply implemented and deeply performed, because it's the part that knowing the real problem, the real needs of your target users. Okay, so this is the question for you. If you want to be innovative, you have to defend, do you really know your users, and do you really know what your users need? Because again, design thinking or trying to create an innovative product, you have to make sure that you know the real need of your users. Okay, so what's your answers for this question? Do you really know your users? Do you really know what your users need? Okay, so design thinking is user-based designing. It is not just designing and then finding suitable user afterwards to justify your product design. Okay, because sometimes the tragedy of the common is you design a solution and then you look for the user and then you look for the problem. So that's not design thinking. That's not innovative thinking. It's technically called reverse engineering. Like there is a solution and then you find the problem or you find the users after. So first is you find a user, you determine the problem, you determine the needs, and then that's the time you start to think for the solution. Okay, so that's design thinking. So it's about looking at people. Like what can you see in the picture? Maybe this is a technically a designer, design thinking, a design thinker, and he wants to help people in the hospital, especially those who are lying in the sick bed. So what's the best way to empathize is that the designer himself lie in the hospital bed and use a camera. He also put like a teeter in his mouth to feel how does it feel to be lying in a sick bed even though you don't have a sickness. And that's role play, but at least to give you an empathy, to empathize with your user. As what they say, empathy is putting yourself in other others other person's shoes. So you have to understand how they feel. What are they experiencing? Even though it's just a role play, but at least through the role play, through a series of deep interviews with them, immersing with them, talking to them, maybe along the way you can get a glimpse of how do they live their lives, how do they feel, or what are really their needs that needs to be answered with an innovative solution. Okay, so it's about looking at people and seeing things from their viewpoint, not yours. Okay, so that's empathy. Like for example, also, what did the designers do? Uh, they want to help pregnant persons, like try to create an innovative product to improve the lives or the lifestyle of those persons who are pregnant. So what did the designers do? They they put on some they put on a role play so that they can also feel how does it feel to be pregnant. Even though it's just like a cloth with some paddings there, at least they can simulate the feeling of a pregnant person. That's empathy. Okay. So you as a solution provider, you as an innovator, you as a design thinker should be always aware of that thing. Try to empathize with your user, know your user's need. Okay. So how about this? Um, I think these persons are from IKEA. I think I just get the picture, and then they want to empathize those persons who are kind of old persons doing the grocery stuff. Because there are some feedbacks that older persons have some issues in doing the grocery, so they simulate. What did they do? They put on some yellow straps in their legs, in their hands, so that they can feel. And then they realize, oh, it's difficult if you have straps in your hands, in your legs. Maybe this is how those old persons are experiencing. And they even put like a blurry glasses. Maybe also to simulate the experience of their eyes, like to find it hard reading the labels of the what's on the can, the packages, and the biscuits, all for the purpose of empathy, all for the purpose of understanding what does your users really are experiencing and what are their needs. So you have to empathize with them. So that's how important empathy is. So, for example, um, these are my students. Way back in like 3 years ago, I challenged them to help people who are doing rags, who what rag making is their way of livelihood. So in order for them to know better and understand the user, they themselves do the stuff. They practice it themselves. Okay, so that they can have a feel. And of course, they also have conducted interview. So series of interview. There are circles of interview. And I challenge them that you have to really interview the users because it's like an iceberg. Maybe the surface of an iceberg is very, very small. But if you look deeper, maybe there's a hidden story there. Maybe there's something that needs to be extracted from their viewpoint. Just talk to them. Just talk for their ideas. Okay. So that's how powerful interview is, especially if you conduct it well. And eventually you will get their need statement and you can get the persona. Again, you create the persona in order for you to protect the identity of your users and then to show how you understand them as your target user. So that's the importance. These are the need statement and the persona are usually the outputs of the empathy stage. Okay. So after knowing the users, after knowing their needs, you have to brainstorm for ideas for possible solution. That's on the ideation part, the ideate. Okay. So, and then whenever you do brainstorming, you will be receiving different answers, several solutions from your teammates. So, like for example, there are four of you, and then the four of you will try to will try to share four solutions also each. So 4 times 4, that would be 16. 16 solutions. So the challenge there is don't tell me that you're going to provide all the 16 solutions as your during the prototyping part. No, no, it cannot be done. It's very impractical. So out of the 16, you really have to prioritize. Like, okay, you have your set of solutions. I have my set of solutions. You have your set of solutions, but we have to prioritize. We have to map. We have to map which is more feasible, which is more doable, which is more desirable, and which has more impact for the target user. So brainstorming will always give you several or many outputs, but you still have to cluster and prioritize, map them so that you can really identify what is the best solution for the target user. Eventually, you then perform concept development. Make sure that your solution will have the characteristic of desirable, feasible, and viable. Again, desirable, feasible, and viable. So later I will discuss what is this desirable, feasible, and viable. Okay. So this is what happens in ideation. Um, Usually, you're going to use post-it notes and try to use color because I think research shows that if you use different colors, it triggers better creativity and critical thinking. And also there is the component of fun and playfulness with it. Like for example, you as a person, you like the color yellow. So maybe during the brainstorming, while you write your ideas, you will use the yellow post-its, and the other person, your teammate, might use the pink ones, and the other might use the green, and the other might use the blue. So it's more like identity, the fun stuff. But along the way, strategically, you can also use the colors to group accordingly the outputs. So it depends on you. It depends how your team are going to decide it. But expect different outputs, many outputs that needs to be prioritized, mapped, and clustered. So it's a creative chaos. But along the way, you will reach to a very good final output. It may take some time, but just believe in the process. Just do it for the target user. Okay, just put it in your heart. I'm going to help my target user. So effort, it takes effort and perseverance to really extract what's the best solution for them. So these are my students. I let them do this stuff like, okay, you do roundtable discussions, and um, you discuss things, you prioritize, you cluster your data, you cluster your outputs, and then you can even lie on the floor, then discuss stuff like that. So it's more on empowering my students to think for themselves, self-directed learning, the confidence, and the process of design thinking. Okay, so what are the key elements for design thinking led solution? So this is the part where I'm going to discuss the desirability, the feasibility, and the viability. So this is the question. Do they want this? Because desirability, if you search for its meaning, is having attractive, promising, and pleasing qualities, features, or properties worth having or getting for the target user. So whenever you pitch something about your solution, always highlight what sets you apart above the rest, or what are in your design or in your product that makes it attractive. Okay, what makes it very desirable for the target users? Like when you pitch it, the users will really say, wow, that's very nice, please, I really like that product. So you have to highlight what makes it desirable, so that they can say that they want it. So you can answer the question, do they really want this? Of course they want this, because this it has this feature, it has this ergonomics, it has this cool stuff that no products have no products in the market have done yet. Okay, so that's desirability, the human side. The next is, can we do this? So that's feasibility, the technology side. So your product is already desirable, so what makes it feasible? So you have to assure your target users or the investors or your potential investors that it is very doable, it is very practical, possible to do, capable of being done or carried out. So you have to identify what makes it engaging, and you have to answer the question, can we really do it using the existing technologies? You have to assure your users and your target investors about that it is that your design is very, very doable. So that's feasibility, the technology part. And the question of, should we do this? So that's viability, the business side. Should we do this? Like, what makes it sustainable? Is this the best solution that can succeed? So as by definition, viability is having a reasonable chance of succeeding in terms of existence, growth, profitability, and sustainability. So, okay, we already have the criteria of, okay, your product is desirable, your product is feasible, but make sure also that it is viable, because it would be very sad if you have a desirable product and your product really works practically, but maybe after 2 months, automatically it will be damaged, or it will malfunction, or there is no room for growth about it. Like you cannot add additional features on it. It's very static, the design. You have to make sure that it can be improved along the way so that it can grow along the way. You grow towards better versions and further improvements. That's viability. On the investor side, you have to assure the investor, like the how will the investor make money out of it? And for the target user side, on the business side, make sure that it will really help improve the lives of your target user. Okay, so because business doesn't always mean money. Business is actually the if you find the definition of the word business, it's not money. Business is the interaction, the series of activities, the contextual analysis of the exchange of information, the ideas, the work of persons, that's the business. Eventually, for a holistic growth of the society, for improvement of lives, that's business. Okay, so it's not all about money. So you have to verify that what makes it profitable, and at the same time, what makes it very beneficial for the community or for your target user. Okay, so this is the pattern. Do they want this? Can we do this? Should we do this? And if you have all three components, it is the only way that you can say that your output is an innovation. If there is something missing of the three, like it is desirable and viable but not feasible, it's not an innovation. Or like for example, it is viable and desirable but not feasible, it's not innovative. Okay, so technically the desirability, the feasibility, and the viability ingredients are very good guide for us to orient ourselves, like these components should always be there in order for my product to be innovative. And these are the three components that I need to highlight during pitching or presenting my solution to the target users or the investors, so that at least I have a high chance of acceptability and success of my product. Okay? So social innovation, like for this, I think this on the left side, these persons are having difficulty carrying their very heavy loads of water in their homes. So using design thinking on the right side, that's the solution. Okay, they simply added it's like a stick, a curved stick, and they connect it to the each end of the barrel, and then they allow it to roll. Okay, so that's innovation. Innovation doesn't need to involve high cost or complex technology, but requires only a creative mind inspired by the will to serve or make life better for the others. So don't expect to always spend much money just to be innovative. Remember that your best asset is your mind and the heart to serve a better purpose in life. Okay? So that's design thinking. So how about this? So the question is, student, I think this is an MRI, magnetic resonance imaging. Uh, for some kids, they find it very scary to have the experience of being put in an MRI. So what did the design thinking experts did? Simple as this. From a scary experience, they convert it into a pirate island. So they just use arts and paint some stuff there so that to lessen the anxiety and the scary experience of the kids doing the MRI. So that's design thinking. Just maybe it doesn't need to be very grandeur. You just need to identify the very problem, and then the solution might be small but very effective. So that's the target there. Okay. So the last but not the least is the prototyping. Okay, the prototyping is defined as channeling your solutions to the users the best way possible for them to experience it. So maybe you can use prototypes, diorama, illustrations, role play, just for the users to know what is the nature of your solution. Like like if you design an app in a cell phone, or are you doing a circuit, you have to illustrate it, maybe in the form of prototype, diorama, any best way possible for the user to experience the design. I think, okay. And eventually, after doing prototyping, you're going to pitch what you've done. And of course, you're going to get the important users' feedbacks. So we call it in design thinking co-creation. It's called co-creation because in design thinking, you also have to empower the user to be part of the solution. You have to empower your target user, like he or she also did suggest something for the solution that you are going to give to him or to her. Okay, so That's why it's called co-creation. The user, the target user themselves, the target users you have empathized with also needs to be addressed, especially in their concerns, their suggestions for improvement, some things that they don't like in your solution. You have to take note of that. It's called co-creation, because co-creation, what your target there are the important users' feedbacks. So it's under prototyping. So like this, for in the uppermost top left, you can see that it's prototyping. They simply use a paper, and then I think it's a smartwatch testing the blood pressure of the person wearing it. And maybe in prototyping, you need to um, do circuit design. You need to illustrate. In the bottom left, you can see a storyboard. Okay, and then after discussion, you are going to, like for example, in this the middle part in the left, I think they have designed a dashboard. What does the dashboard look like? So they simply use first paper and pen. So at least they have a guide before really programming and coding it. And as you can see also, this guy here, it's more like a virtual reality. Yeah. And I think this orange here is a cell phone. So at least it's prototyping, to let the target users experience and anticipate what would be the like a trailer or the feature of your upcoming solutions for them. So prototyping is very, very important. And remember, you have to get the feedback of the users for what you have done. What are the good points? What are the things that needs to be improved? And then what are their suggestions? You have to take note of that. It's called co-creation in design thinking. Again, it's all about the user. So you really have to give premium to what they say to your product or your solution. So that's prototyping. Okay. So these are my students. I think it's called gallery walk in design thinking. My students proudly say and pitch what they have done, what are the process, how they come up with the product. It's in the gallery walk, and they ask for the feedback of the target users. What are the good points, the things to improve, and what are their suggestions? So it's more like an interactive process between the designers, and the target users. So it's a very holistic communication process, especially if it is being done well. So expect to receive good comments, and expect also to receive things, critical comments that needs to be addressed, like some things that you need to improve. Again, design thinking is not a one-shot deal. So you have to do it several times. So along the way, you improve your output. Okay, so that's prototyping. It may be the last part, but maybe you can go back again to the next part just for the purpose of improvement. So these are the three questions that we can use as a guide when we ask for the feedback of our target users. Ask them, ask them what works, what doesn't work, and how can we make it better. Again, ask them what works in your design, and then ask them what doesn't work in your design. So at least you can have an idea, and then you can even suggest. You can even ask for their suggestions. How can we make it better? And then after that, at least you can have an idea how to improve your design. So that's in the design thinking. Then after receiving all the compliments and criticisms from your target users, you have to do it again and again and again until they are fully satisfied with your product. Okay, so as what they say, uh, the heart of an innovator is very, very strong. More like design thinker, a design thinking student or a person, you should not be weak in your heart, because sometimes we have this tendency, like we are so proud of what we have done, but after receiving some critical negative comments by some people, by the audience, we usually tend to stay away from the spotlight, or like we lose our confidence to improve. So please don't. Failure is part of learning. It's called, sometimes they say that the word fail means FAIL is stands for first attempt in learning. So you might fail, but along the way, if you do it again, at least you already have an idea how to do it in a better manner. Again, if you want to be innovative, always think of your target user. At the end of the day, it's not about you, it's about them. So you have to consider their inputs, and if you really want to help them, strengthen your heart and improve your mind. Okay? So that's design thinking. It's an iterative process. It is very normal to do things repeatedly. It is not a one-shot successful deal. Because I think I've never encountered design thinking to be done in just one cycle. I think the normal cycle for that is like you have to do things like three times. You would be very lucky to do it just three times, especially after the prototyping, and then you adjust your output, you adjust the design because of the feedback of the target users, and then eventually, after a series of going back and forth, you're going to do something very good. That's innovation. It's a cyclical process. It may be tedious, but the outputs are very, very promising and very good. So just keep on pressing on. Okay. So this is typically the design thinking process. There is technically before reaching the very best solution or the very best output, might really encounter kind of chaos along the way, challenges along the way, difficulties along the way. But along the way, if you just press on, continue to believe in the focus of being innovative, continue of believing, helping the target users, eventually you can reach your goal. So that is the design thinking process. Okay. So that would be the first part of my presentation. Then we go to the second part. How to be a design thinker. Okay, how to be a design thinker. So a design thinker, I've made an acronym for it. If you want to be a design thinker or an innovative person, you have to be a caster for innovation. Okay, caster. You have to cast something. C stands for, if you want to be a design thinker, you have to be a creative thinker and concept developer. Next, you have to be an active listener and active participant. Next, you have to be S. You have to follow the steps. You have to be steps follower and a strong speaker. Strong speaker in the sense that you have to be confident with your ideas, okay, especially in the pitching part. T, you have to be time sensitive and team player, okay. Like for example, the judges or your teacher wants you to have an output for the next 3 hours. After 3 hours, there should be an output, okay. So you should be sensitive with the time, and since you should always be a team player, you have to collaborate, you have to discuss with your teammates, you have to always do teamwork, you have to be a good person in terms of teamwork. E, this is very important. You have to be energetic and enthusiastic. Like, even though you might encounter forms of failure along the way, keep the energy. Please keep the energy and remain the enthusiasm along the way. Okay. Remember, you are trying to help people. You want to make the world a better place. You want to be innovative. Then keep the enthusiasm. As what they say, keep the fire burning. Okay. Last but not the least, you have to be responsive and reflective. Like for example, during the co-creation, during the prototyping, during the part where you get the feedbacks from the target user, you have to respond to what they are talking. You have to respond to what the investors have said. You have to respond what your teachers or your mentors have said, and try to reflect about the situation. Try to think about the experience. So you have to be responsive and reflective. So that is for a design thinker. You have to be a caster for innovation. Okay. So I hope this can be used as a guide for you to really assess yourself. Am I really an innovator? So some key skills for effectivity, you also have to develop the skills on, you should know how to observe. Okay. You have to master the skill of observation. You have to master also empathy, and you have to know how to interview. These are very key skills in doing design thinking. Insights generation means like you may get the verbatim from your interviewees, and then you are going to cluster them in order to develop some concepts, in order to extract the needs, in order to characterize the persona. You need your own insights. Assuming like you are the target user, then you use an insight like, okay, my target user said that he doesn't like uh, wooden furnitures, and my target user said that he doesn't like applications who are very having contrasting colors in its dashboard. So you have to take that. Oh, okay. So I will use insights and try to think, what is my target user thinking? Why he or she said those things? So that's where you use your insights. Okay. So that's insights generation. Then the needs analysis. After assessing the needs of the target users, you have to analyze like what are the real need of the user. Okay? So you have to discuss it with your teammates. Then conceptualization, especially in the prototyping part, like ideation part. I'm sorry for that. Conceptualization in the ideation part, like you have to know what would be the solution for the needs. Then the prototyping skills. You should be good in your hands-on stuff. If you want to code, you should be good in coding. That's it. And the pitching part, the feedbacking part, you have to be very good with that. You have to know how to prototype those ideas for the target users. Then the presentation and the communication skills. Okay, as what I said earlier, you really have to be a strong speaker because to have a strong voice, to have a confident voice, usually a big chance to persuade or convince your audience. So try to take advantage of your voice. Okay, so that's badly needed. So data clustering, it's a major skill for design thinking because of all the data you have captured, you really have to identify how to classify everything, how to map, how to conceptualize, and try to consolidate everything in order to get just one good idea. So that's in design thinking. Of course, brainstorming. You have to be very good in brainstorming. Like if it's a time for brainstorming, then try to automatically adjust the thinking speed of your brain and then talk whatever your brain tells you. Like any insights, any solution, release it and share it to your group mates. That's it. Okay. So you have to be thinking outside of the box. That's what they say. But for me, I think I am not very comfortable with the word thinking outside the box because what are inside this box? They say that inside all of us, each person has a box. Okay. They say that for the first side is the hard skills. The hard skills like if you really know doing circuits, if you know programming, source coding, if you know what do you call that, how to use a machine, those are hard skills. Okay. Then the second part of the box are the soft skills. What are the soft skills? It's your attitude. Are you a people person? Are you very good in speaking? In speaking, are you a stubborn person? Are you a person who are very determined? Do you have PR, as what they say, the public relation? Are you good with dealing with people? Do you have this confidence when doing things? Those are soft skills. Okay. Next is the experience. Do you really have like for example, your instructor will try to challenge you to drive a car. So based on your box, if you don't have any experience yet in driving a car, then you really cannot drive a car for the very first time, because based on experience, you don't have an experience about it. Like for example, your instructor will say, how good are you in using computer aided drafting or drawing? So it will go to your experience side. So if you only know the basics, then that is just the capacity of your box in your experience part. Last but not the least is the background. Uh, the background is the part of your educational background, your family background, your identity as a person. That's in your background. So each person is individually bounded by their own boxes. So just for me, I really find it hard to understand how can a person think outside the box when psychologically we are all individually bounded by our own boxes. So maybe if you just an idea, if you are this box, you might go to another box. Try to think for this second box as the box of another person, the box of your teammate. This is you, and this is the box of your teammate. Then you teammate with other person, another two persons. You discuss things. You share your box with each other. Then with other persons, with other persons, with other persons, with other persons, with other persons. That's more like you share. Maybe the meaning of the word thinking outside the box is expand your box. Okay? Like for example, if you expand your box, maybe you might learn something from the box of your teammate, right? If you are not good in driving, but your classmate has the experience in driving, and you are in the same team, then that's good. Your teammate fill up the need of your experience, of your weakness your weakness is a strength of your teammate. So you really have to work well with your teammate and know their boxes. Okay. So maybe for me, thinking outside the box is expanding your box. Because for me, you don't need to learn everything. Okay. Don't carry all the burden for yourself just to be innovative. You just need to actively share and be honest with your ideas. Okay? Just be honest. You don't need to learn everything. Just actively share your ideas and be honest with it. Because when you collaborate, when you do teamwork, you're expanding your box. If someone is talking, you listen actively, and then there will be understanding. There will be a transfer of information, and your box eventually will really expand. And at least along the way, it will improve. So that's how powerful collaborating and teamwork is. So they expect that there will be noise and creative chaos. At least along the way, you develop active listening, you agree to disagree, and you build on someone's ideas. So these are some of the benefits when you do teamwork, which is a very fundamental process in design thinking. Because most of the time, you can only do design thinking if you are teaming up with your teammates and then you actively participate as a participant. Okay, so expect this to happen as key skills and advantages in teamwork in design thinking. Okay, So eventually, the process will lead to something fruitful, interesting, and big unified idea with innovative feasibility. So there may be several groups among for the very first time, but through brainstorming, through clustering and sharing, each group will share, like this group will share to another group, and the leaders of all the groups will huddle together and discuss their outputs. Eventually, it will become a one big and innovative idea. Okay, so one big innovative idea from several discussion, and then eventually it will consolidate and culminate into one big and innovative idea. So it's a creative process. There's design, brainstorm, thinking, vision, and ideas. And of course, design thinking usually calls for research, of course, inspiration. So it's like a mixture of everything. It's technically a very colorful process. So in design thinking, there is no such thing as rubbish or trash ideas. Take note of this, guys. There is no such thing as rubbish or trash ideas. Some may be considered as weird or crazy ideas, but at the end of the day, everything are just wonderful concepts that just need to be polished. Okay? So it may take time, but eventually everything will be polished. Okay? So just believe in the process. So the ABCs of design thinking, okay, the do's and don'ts of design thinking. Try to familiarize this one. Don't assume. Okay, guys, don't assume that you already know the solution, but do adapt. Okay, along the way, you might encounter some challenges, some new ideas. So don't assume that it's already okay, but do adapt to whatever happens. Don't bias. Okay, that's the B. Don't bias, but believe in the process. Don't conclude, but do consider. Consider for alternatives. Consider for what if this will happen. So don't assume, but do adapt. Don't bias, but do believe in the process. Don't conclude, but do consider. So these are the ABCs of design thinking. So design thinking for innovation, some helpful key tips for you to be very good in having an innovative outputs. Here are some key tips. These are just 5 tips. First tip is not money, but meaning for the world. So this is what I said earlier. If you want to improve the world, to be innovative, try to think not money for yourself, but meaning for the world. Okay, so that's the positivity there. You want to provide meaning and improve the way of life in the world. So that's it. That's the very first tip. That's positivity. So you can always have the guide of um, addressing solution for this sustainable development goals like no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry innovation and infrastructure, reduce inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and product, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, partnerships for the goal. So it would be very much better if, and your solution would be very meaningful if you can anchor to any of these sustainable development goals. Then jump on the next curve. Don't hesitate. Don't be pessimistic. Don't be afraid to fail because it's part of learning. Okay. So jump on the next curve. If you feel that you can add a feature that has not been done yet, don't be don't be scared like maybe it will not work. Don't think about it. Jump on the next curve. Be courageous, be fearless. Okay, then don't worry, be crappy. Okay, so just enjoy. If you've encountered some difficulties or failures, it's part of learning. Okay, so don't worry, be crappy, it's part of the process. As you can see in the picture, like I'm so inspired with this picture because even though all of them are very muddy already, they're just enjoying the experience. Okay, so design thinking is technically a very good experience if you just try to always look at the light side, the good side in it. Okay. Okay. So don't worry, be crappy. Next, niche yourself from the rest. So maybe what you have designed is already kind of similar with the design of the other team or for the other products in the market. So you have to identify what sets you apart from the rest. You have to niche yourself from the rest. It's more like setting apart from the competition. You have to highlight that. Okay. Last but not the least, you have to improve and perfect your pitch. Okay. So you really have to develop the art of being a strong speaker and channeling best your ideas to the target users. It involves confidence, it involves articulation, and it involves the skill to persuade and convince your target user. Remember, what's the difference between persuade and convince? When you convince, you attack the brain. When you persuade, you attack the heart. So it's a mix when you pitch. Okay? Persuade and convince. So this is the third and final part. What are the key benefits of doing design thinking? You develop brainstorming skills. Okay, that's part of it. You became critical and innovative thinkers. You develop how to interview and master the concept of empathy. Then there is teamwork appreciation because along the way you will be dealing with your teammates and working with several walks of life with people from different discipline. You're going to appreciate it. Okay, so these are some of the benefits when you are a design thinker. There will be curiosity and self-directed learning within you because you're going to do some research, read some stuff. There will be curiosity. And there is also positive behavior and self-discovery because since you are going to work well with people, positivity should always be there for you in order to keep the team together and have some very good outputs. There will be discipline, responsibility, and professionalism. Okay, so you develop yourselves to what it really means to be professional. Then, this is the best part, especially if the target users, the investors, and the community will really like your idea or what you have done, or if you can win an award, that's a sense of purpose and achievement. So that's a very, very good thing to get, especially if you know design thinking and you will create something innovative product for the community and for the people around you. So by frequently practicing design thinking, you eventually become an innovator that this world needs. Again, I will repeat this. By frequently practicing design thinking, you eventually become an innovator that this world needs. So, okay, so summarizing what I've talked, what is design thinking? So this is the summary. What is design thinking? It's sense, empathize, ideate, and prototype. It's a user-based designing focusing on empathy, focusing on the needs of your target user. So it's not about you, it's all about the target user. And expect to do several steps again and again and again because it's an iterative problem-solving approach towards innovation. Okay? So how to be a design thinker? You have to always be active and participative. Collaborative, you should be a team player. You, you should follow the steps and always be reflective along the way. Think, share, design, fail, learn, do it again, succeed. Then, what are the key benefits of doing design thinking? You have to be you became a systematic thinker. There is growth for you in a professional way, and you always have the innovative mindset. Okay, so where do we go from here? Okay, after learning all of this, Where do we go from here? So this would be my last slide. You start, you empathize, you team up, think options, fail, repeat. Learn by creating, visualize and share. Last but not the least, believe in the process. So that would be my talk about design thinking. Thank you so much.